me why I love her? Well, give me time. I'll explain. You seen a Kansas sunset or an Arizona rain? Have you drifted on a bayou down Louisiana way? Have you watched the cold fog drifting over San Francisco Bay?
John Wayne disliked the label super patriot. As film director Raoul Walsh once said, he's always been grateful for having been born in a country where he could start from scratch with nothing, no acting background, no dramatic skill, and work his way up to becoming a folk hero. That image was cultivated during more than 200 movies, and through the years, the tough, good guy he played on the screen gelled with a real-life John Wayne to a point where it became hard to separate one from the other. In January of 1979, just before he was to have the third major operation of his life, he and ABC's Barbara Walters talked about another label he acquired, that of legend.
When you read now, people call you the legend or the legendary John Wayne. I mean, do you feel as if they're writing about a monument or a man who isn't here anymore, or do you say, yeah, that's...
Well, that was kind of scary, let's say. There's a thing to frighten you. They talk like you're a part of the past or something. And rightfully so, I am a part of the past.
John Wayne was his screen name, picked for him after a 1930 Western he did called The Big Trail. He began life as Marion Michael Morrison on May 26, 1907, in Winterset, Iowa. He had a pet Airedale when he was a child. Its name was Duke, and for some obscure reason, it became the boy's nickname. John Wayne would be known as Duke from then on. His family moved from Iowa to California when he was 6. They eventually settled in Glendale, where Wayne went to school. He was good in football, and his abilities in high school earned him an athletic scholarship to the University of Southern California. While there, his coach found Wayne a summer job as a property man. That was the official start of his career, although it was about a dozen years later before Wayne earned the title of star. That came in the role of the Ringo Kid in United Artists' 1939 Western Stagecoach. Wayne's early career was taken up mainly with grade B and C Westerns, and probably because the storylines in those movies were so simple, critics never took him very seriously. It was during those early Westerns that Wayne became the screen's first singing cowboy. The way the story goes, that aspect of his career was dropped quickly to avoid embarrassing him. Wayne couldn't sing very well, and he was constantly being asked to when he made personal appearances. What the public didn't know was that his singing and guitar playing on the screen were being done by someone else. During the 1940s, Wayne made many World War II action pictures. One of these roles, that of the tough Marine combat sergeant in the sands of Iwo Jima, won him an Academy Award nomination in 1949. But it was not until 20 years later that he won his first and only Oscar for his portrayal of the cantankerous U.S. Marshal Rooster Cogburn in the movie True Grit. A number of critics feel that Wayne's career got its second wind in the late 1940s when he began playing older Western roles. In fact, after portraying cavalry officers in a couple of movies, a controversial officer from World War II told him, "Young man," Wayne was in his early 40s at the time, "you represent the cavalry officer more than any man who was in uniform." The compliment came from General Douglas MacArthur. The closest John Wayne ever came to being in the armed services was when his alternate appointment to the U.S. Naval Academy fell through in the 1920s. But he remained close to the military, not only on the screen, but in real life.
In South Vietnam, the big guns roared, and once again we fought a war. To honor a pledge our nation gave, to help that little country save her people from the certainty that she'd be ruled by tyranny.
His views on why the United States was fighting in Vietnam were included in an album of semi-narratives his production company released in 1973. They were patriotic and came at a time in U.S. history when the traditional concepts of patriotism were being challenged by critics of the Vietnam War. This national attitude didn't bother Wayne, and on more than one occasion he joined in honoring the men who had fought in Southeast Asia. May of 1973 found him at the White House at a party for returning prisoners of war.
You men, I want to say thanks for showing the whole world the kind of men a free country can put up when the going gets rough. You're the best we have, And I'll ride off into the sunset with you anytime.
His conservative views, including his support for then-President Richard Nixon, got him an invitation to Harvard University in 1974, courtesy of the editors of the satirical and hardly conservative periodical, The Lampoon. Wayne responded in kind as he rode into Harvard Square aboard an armored personnel carrier, courtesy of the 5th Armored Cavalry. But there was little real antagonism during the question-and-answer session in the Harvard Square Theater, and the actor was applauded frequently, such as when he was asked for his views on what was then popularly called women's lib.
I think they have a right to work any place they want to. As long as they have dinner ready when you get home.
Although he was one of this country's best-known political conservatives, on one occasion he got a good deal of hate mail from, of all groups, the conservatives. Wayne had made them angry for his support of the Panama Canal Treaties, agreements that would eventually turn over the canal to Panama. The treaties had been supported by such conservative Republican presidents as Richard Nixon and Gerald Ford, and Wayne again held firm for what he believed.
I think it's recognition of people who we've treated as second-rate citizens for a number of years and have shown great loyalty to us. And since we have promised them for a long period of time that we would give them such a treaty, I think it's time that we did.
Although he was denounced by some conservatives as a communist cohort, Wayne shrugged off the criticism. "I've been jolted by the extreme left," he said. "I guess a little from the extreme right won't hurt me too much." During a 1979 interview with Barbara Walters, he discussed the pros and cons of speaking out on various issues.
Will you explain to me why an actor should keep his mouth shut more than anyone else?
Because maybe he's listened. He has more power than anyone else because he is an actor.
I'm not near the power that the press has, and they certainly say a lot of things they shouldn't say.
You never worry that it might interfere with your career or that people might dislike you?
I am me.
And if they get mad and they don't like you, so what?
I am me. If I want things to be done, I feel that I have to be a part of it. I can't shirk it off onto somebody else. If I feel that I have something that is worthwhile saying, I say it. If the liberals don't think it's worthwhile, fine. Somebody in this country that belongs to the greatest middle class in the whole world and what has made us a great nation seem to feel the same way I do, because I don't seem to find any trouble with the people not liking me.
You talk sometimes about what the liberals have done that you feel has hurt this country. You have called yourself a liberal.
In that sense, in the original sense of the word, I feel that I am a liberal. I listen to everybody's point of view and make up my own mind. And I feel that anybody that will listen to somebody else's point of view is taking a liberal attitude. I haven't found any of the liberals listening to anybody else, and then so
John Wayne is the true liberal.
The vernacular has changed, let's say.
Wayne had very definite ideas about his pictures, and they reflected his conservative viewpoint. He didn't care for the looser attitudes on sex and violence that crept into the movies after the 1950s. He felt that his own brand of rough-and-tumble, straight-shooting screen violence was different, sort of tongue-in-cheek. In fact, in his review of True Grit, Richard Schickel wrote that Wayne had discovered what was funny about the character he had always played. Schickel called the Oscar-winning performance an exuberant put-on that seems to delight him as much as it does us. True Grit represents the true climax of a great and well-loved career, if not as an actor, then as an American institution. Wayne did not always receive such praise, but whatever shortcomings he had on the screen did not affect his drawing power at the box office. He was one of Hollywood's top 10 moneymakers for more than 20 years. Less successful was his married life, although he told Rona Barrett in a 1978 interview that he felt very close to his 7 children.
Is there a time when a parent must cut the umbilical cords, the ties to the boat, and try to see if their children will either sink or swim?
They do it for you. You look around one day and the cord is cut. But the thing that I am so thankful for is that there is a love among my family that holds pretty strong. You know, every one of those older kids whatever they were doing, whatever jobs they had, they quit and came back when I had the operation. That's pretty nice.
That is very nice. Well, there's obviously something that you taught them about family life. Is there not, Duke?
I don't know. When you stop to think that I was separated, but they were never around any family bickering or anything. And Josephine, who was a wonderful woman, really had the responsibility of raising the first four. Did a wonderful job.
Josephine was his first wife. He was married twice after that. John Wayne's health made as many headlines as anything else he did. In September of 1964, he developed a persistent cough. A test showed he had cancer in his left lung, and it had to be removed. Some of his advisors wanted him to keep everything quiet so it wouldn't hurt his public image. But in December of 1964, Wayne called a news conference. His statement was simple: I have licked the big C. Wayne had been a chain smoker throughout his life, but he filmed a series of anti-smoking announcements as part of his campaign to help warn people that cigarettes could hurt them. In April of 1978, Wayne had another operation. This time, it was his heart. Again, he came through it like one of his two-fisted screen characters, and his public flooded his hospital room in Boston with messages of support, something which touched Wayne very much.
That's the cradle of history, but it's also the cradle of humanities. There are some wonderful, wonderful people back there.
What kind of response did you get from the American people?
I want to cry.
Less than a year later, the messages of goodwill again came to a hospital room, this time in Los Angeles, and this time it was cancer again. The Duke's stomach was removed during a 9-hour operation. Before the surgery, reports said Wayne was going in for a gallbladder problem, but he had an inkling it might be something more serious. Barbara Walters talked with him a few days before he was hospitalized.
Listen, I spoke to the man up there on many occasions, and I have... But I've always had deep faith that there is a supreme being. There has to be. You know, it's just... To me, that's just a normal thing to have that kind of faith. The fact that he's let me stick around a little longer, or she's let me stick around a little longer, certainly goes great with me. And I want to hang around as long as I'm healthy and not in anybody's way.
The doctors were amazed at John Wayne's stamina and his will to live, two qualities he showed in April of 1979 when he appeared at the Academy Awards.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That's just about the only medicine a fella'd ever really need. Believe me when I tell you that I'm mighty pleased that I can amble down here tonight.
But just 3 weeks before his 72nd birthday in May, the Duke was back in the hospital. It was cancer again, and an indication of how serious the disease was this time came from the administrator of the UCLA Medical Center, Bernard Strom, when he announced the kind of treatment the actor would get.
It is experimental medicine. When they're searching for truth, they're searching for the answer to this tragic riddle.
The answer was not found for John Wayne, but like the characters he played so often, he gave it all he had. His attitude reflected his philosophy about life.
I've had enough experience to know that if I open my eyes and look outside and it's a nice foggy day, it's great. If it's a sunny day, it's beautiful.
I'm Bill Deal, ABC News, New York.